Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I don't have comments for the record because there's too many things that the prior speaker said or failed to say that I need to address. My good friend, Chairman of the Gaming Committee, Representative Petrie, Chairman Petrie, started reading about promulgating temporary regulations. But he didn't read the entire section. He left off very key points. The section says that when promulgating temporary regulations regarding the application, background investigation, and renewal process for an establishment, license or regulations regarding an establishment, licensees' duties and responsibilities regarding the conduct of video gaming under this part, the board shall consider promulgating regulations that minimize the regulatory burden on establishment licensees. But it also says, and establishment licensee applicants, to the extent that all requirements and duties and responsibilities are fulfilled under this part. Please note that this section comes from our State Regulatory Review Act. Now, the chairman also said that why not let the free market play its role in establishment of fees? The amount that the taverns will get versus the amount that the operator will get. Well, what we did when we looked at this legislation for the last 3 years, and for the people watching at home, please know that this just isn't coming up tonight. We've had this vote last session, we've vetted this bill, we've changed it, and we've made it much better, as are the other parts of this legislation, like the iGaming. Mr. Speaker, the reason we did not have the ability in this legislation for negotiation to take place between the tavern owner or the club and the operator is because when that happened in other states, it was a very slow ramp up with installation of the slot machines or VGTs. There started to become disputes between the operators and the locations, ultimately going and making appeals to the elected officials to please settle this and establish a fixed rate. So now they're competing on service. Mr. Speaker, we also heard in Illinois how there's local control. We don't have that in Pennsylvania because our liquor licenses are controlled at the state level. In Illinois, the local mayor is responsible for handing out liquor licenses, and they vote on that locally. That's not what we want in Pennsylvania if we're truly interested in getting revenue for our general fund. The prior speaker talked about there's a 54% tax rate. Even if you talk to the casinos or the horsemen, they don't call it a tax rate because the part that goes to the horsemen's fund, they don't consider that a tax. None of that 54% comes to our general fund. Zero comes to our general fund, Mr. Speaker. Under this legislation, this will all be new money to our general fund. How many of us have received calls or emails in our office right about this time of year or a few months from now, whenever people get their school tax bills? And the comment is, I thought our property taxes were going to be going down when we got the passage of slots in Pennsylvania. Governor Rendell promised that. And what do we say? Oh, it's on there, it's in the homestead. No one knows. But you know what they will know? They will know when the money to the general fund, when this is fully implemented, is $350 million just for VGTs, and you're able to send additional basic school education funding back to your local districts. They'll know that. They'll also know when 67 counties and all the municipalities that have VGTs in them are receiving local share. We're not picking winners and losers by who gets the Gaming Control Board License Award. You're able to pick winners and losers tonight for every district that you represent. And we worked with many of the representatives from the city of the first class to try and fix their stop and go or stop or shot or whatever they were calling it problem. And there's language in the legislation that tries to address that. There's also language in the legislation that funds the officers that are going to go out and inspect that you've been crying for years. But again, if you want to find a reason to say no, you can always find a reason to say no. What we're trying to do is give you reasons to say yes and turn a system that's currently very, very poor for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with the way the casinos are running it to something that's very beneficial. The last 5 to 6 years, slots revenue in the state of Pennsylvania is stagnant. Stagnant. If that was on the stock, those numbers were on the stock exchange, your stock would be going down. You're not making return to your investors. Our investors are also our constituents. So what our constituents are saying with this legislation is we want to diversify. We want to go after more of the market share, and that's exactly what happened in Illinois. If you read the reports that have been done, the state of Illinois is a winner because of what they've done for VGTs. The casinos have hurt themselves because they put casinos on the borders of Illinois, just like what's happened in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Ohio, New York. They've all come in after us, right? And we're starting to see the impact that that's had. That's why we're having stagnation. That's why the casinos came to us and said, hey, we want to diversify. Give us the opportunity for table games. All we're saying is let's diversify for our taxpayers. Let's diversify for our local municipalities. Let's diversify for our fire departments that have liquor licenses. One of the great things, it was said earlier that there was not the proper vetting of this legislation. Well, it's actually being used in a YouTube video that kind of takes a shot at me because it's incomplete, where the representative for Philadelphia says, did you know that these can be in nursing homes? You know, how many of us knew before he asked that question that nursing homes in Pennsylvania can have liquor licenses? I sure didn't, but you know what? I'm going to be 60 this year, and I'm going to go find that nursing home. At some point, I want to be in that nursing home. And I'm going to go to my state rep at that time, and I'm going to go to my...
Sir, please suspend. Representative Nielsen. Wait. Representative Nielsen, for what purpose do you stand?
The gentleman just called me out.
No, I didn't.
He said, the gentleman from Philadelphia questioned about the nursing homes, and that was me. He knows who it was. He might as well put it online. It's right online. The video's been on PCN. It's been all over the place. I asked him, and it's true.
Mr. Speaker.
It's true.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't finish.
Everybody, please suspend.
I'm not going to have him talk about me. Take shots when I'm sitting in my chair.
Representative Nielsen, come on up, please. Representative Mustio, please come up. Representative Nielsen, please come up. Yeah. Representative Mustio, if you could please come up too, please. Representative Mustio, the floor is yours.
All right, the truth be told, we had that all planned to get all of your attention. All right, and I think we did that. No, if I can finish. What I said, and it's my understanding, Mr. Speaker, that we're not permitted to use gentlemen's or gentleladies' names on the House floor. That's my understanding. So I did not use the gentleman's name. But my intention of the comment was, I've been on the House Liquor Committee since I first was elected in 2003. I personally did not know that a liquor license could be obtained by an assisted living facility. And my point was that that was the reason that the interrogation and the vetting in the gaming committee that we heard earlier, this wasn't done, right? That's why that was so good, because you did your job, you did your homework, and I was not aware that an assisted living home could have a liquor license. I was following that up to say, I'm 60 and I would like to go to a nursing home like that someday. And if it's not in this, and we took it out of the bill because of you, but I will come back and demand my state rep add it back in when I go to a nursing home. That was my point. The truth be known, I'm a Penguins fan, he's a Flyers fan, he's still a no, and I'm a yes, but whatever. All right. All right, I'm going to start over. These comments are not for the record. All right, a couple other things that we did, and I'm seriously off track here. A couple other things that we did do in the legislation. In Illinois, as the chairman mentioned in caucus, in Illinois they have what's called slot parlors, where you can have 5 slot machines, a muffin, and a bottle of Fireball, all because it's locally controlled. Local control brought them that. The local people said, we want a liquor license there, we want muffins and Fireball and 5 slot machines, right? And you know who did that? Individuals that went out and bought lots of individual locations. Now, we heard earlier from one of the speakers that, you know, these out-of-state Las Vegas VGT operators. How many of our casinos are Pennsylvania-based? How many are Las Vegas-based? Come on, let's be serious about this. How many taverns are in Pennsylvania? I know there are 2,500 taverns in the Tavern Association, and the taverns are for this. And you know what? I think we have some taverns that are located across from daycare centers, churches, schools, right? They've been there for years. These are these same taverns that are sponsoring our Little League teams, right? Donating to the food banks, doing all those good things for the community. Yet at the same time, these taverns have had their smoking privileges limited. We didn't do that at the casinos. We've cut back on their ability to sell six-packs, you know, all to their detriment. All they're asking for is an opportunity to receive something that they've invested in Pennsylvania for decades, if not centuries, before we approved slots in 2004 in Pennsylvania. I think it's time we step up. It's time we diversify. Mr. Speaker, the provisional licenses provide an opportunity for us to ramp up. In other words, ramping up means we want to get these machines up and running as quickly as possible so that we can generate the revenue that we're going to promise to the general fund. Our Gaming Control Board is awesome. I have total faith in our Gaming Control Board, as is evidenced by the casino in Bucks County that was mentioned earlier that got fined for permitting underage gamblers. Mr. Speaker, nobody's perfect, nothing's perfect, no business is perfect. I'm pretty sure no politician is perfect either. Not all in this state are, though, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, restaurants, your fine dining restaurants, your chain restaurants, the Olive Gardens, the Applebee's, TGIF Fridays, they're not going to be the locations for these. They're going to be in your clubs. They're going to be in your fire halls that have liquor licenses. They're going to be in your local taverns, Mr. Speaker. Our local governments are in favor, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in closing, VGTs are good for older Pennsylvanians. VGTs are good for families. They're good for children. All the programs that are funded out of our general fund, VGTs will be good for that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I urge a yes vote. Thank you.